Hello and welcome to the SUSE Security Series, brought to you in collaboration with Futurium Group. I'm joined today by John Shaw. Hey John, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, nice to be here.
So tell the listeners and viewers a little what you do for SUSE.
Okay, so I joined SUSE just around 2 years ago. I was part of the NeuVector acquisition. So I ran EMEA sales for NeuVector prior to acquisition. I now head up a global team of sales specialists, and we focus on the NeuVector security solution for containerization.
So a perfect person to have on a show that's in a series about digital trust.
Hopefully, yeah, all about digital trust, because that's what we do.
So obviously that's the theme of the series here. We're talking about digital trust. I'd imagine in your role you're talking to customers a lot, getting that sort of customer feedback. What are you hearing?
Absolutely. I mean, digital trust is key, and I think as things move from legacy environments such as data centers into the cloud, digital trust becomes more apparent because you're potentially putting stuff into public clouds, maybe private clouds, but it's more cost effective to go into the public cloud. So what we're seeing is certainly senior level people in IT and IT security are wanting the need to get the cost efficiencies and the benefits from going to the cloud. But they need the security, right? And what keeps them up at night is any potential breach that they may have. So I think one of the big focuses that we're seeing is that people are focusing in on how do they recover from a potential breach. And in today's world, it's not if it's going to happen, it's more a case of when it's going to happen, right? So having that digital trust to be able to move stuff to the cloud, to move things to containers is absolutely critical.
You mentioned something interesting, and it comes up in a lot of our conversations we have with other vendors and clients. That point and that inflection point of moving from on-premises to the cloud, what's the kind of challenges that you're seeing specifically in that space?
Well, I think what you're doing is you're taking the crown jewels from an environment that you have total control over in order to gain cost efficiencies. You're moving it into a public cloud, which is great, and there are cost efficiencies there, but who owns the perimeter of that? Who owns the security of that, right? You've got to maintain that, but you're doing that in a third-party environment. That's very, very difficult to control. And I think one of the key things that you need to have is you need to have visibility of that environment on a continuous basis so that you know what you're defending against. I think it's the old adage of how do you know how to defend against something when you don't know what you're defending against, right? And if you've got it in a third-party environment, that becomes even more difficult.
So one of the key themes we're hearing a lot about is incident response and then recovery. Obviously, you'd prefer not to have an incident in the first place, and we're trying to protect against that. But as you mentioned, it's not a case of if, it's more a case of when.
Absolutely.
What are you hearing from customers as they think about not only that point of the sort of clock starts, you've had an incident, through to how do you plan for the recovery?
Well, I think that all comes down to traditional business continuity. I spent 10 years of my career in business continuity. In the old days of bring your tapes to the data center or bring your disk packs to the data center. Those days have gone now. Everything's online, everything's digital. So I think what we're seeing is, organizations need that visibility of what's going on in their environment. They need to understand where the risks are, and they need to be able to mitigate those extremely quickly. One of the things that we do with the NeuVector SUSE technology is provide organizations with that ability to get visualization within an environment that may be not within their perimeter, right? So they can ascertain where those risks are within their workloads. They can understand where the vulnerabilities are. They can understand perhaps where the malware could get in or may get in, and they can start to block those gaps within their environments before something really bad happens that puts their name in the press and causes them problems.
So obviously in your role you engage with a lot of customers. What are you seeing as that sort of best practice that's starting to emerge from those customer conversations?
Well, I think this has been going on for years, right? And business continuity, digital trust is high up there on C-level sort of thought processes. It's all about the planning. It's all about the what if. And, I think there's an old sort of adage that we use in the UK, failing to plan is planning to fail. And I think that's absolutely appropriate when we start to talk about digital trust, moving environments away from a traditional data center into the cloud. It's the planning, it's the what if. How do we handle this? How quickly can we recover? How quickly can we mitigate a risk? Have we got visibility of what's going on in that environment? Do we know that we can live with that particular vulnerability that we can't currently patch because it's on a live system? Do we understand the communications that are flowing in and out of that environment? So if we do see something suspicious or malicious going on, we can act upon that very, very quickly. So I think it's really about the planning and having the ability to keep that plan in line with the live environment and being able to react very, very quickly if you believe there is something suspicious or malicious going on.
So if you were to try and summarize this up into 3 key takeaways that you could share with clients based on what you're hearing, what your understanding of the SUSE portfolio is, what would those 3 takeaways be?
So I think, we focus, or my team focuses predominantly on containerization and securing that containerization. And that's one of those workloads that is moving from a traditional data center environment to a cloud environment, whether that be a hybrid cloud, on-prem cloud, or public cloud. So I think, one of the key things is understanding your risks in that environment. So perhaps understanding where the vulnerabilities are within that environment. Being able to get network visibility of what's actually going in and going out of that environment, and being able to plan for the worst so that you can react should something actually happen. I would say they're the 3 key areas. Lots of organizations are in the process of starting containerizations because it's cheaper, faster, better for application development. But one of the things that typically gets brought in at a later stage is security, right? So making sure you have the right plan around security, around what you need, how you're going to react to that potential issue or disaster is absolutely paramount.
So if you were to summarize the SUSE value proposition for security, particularly digital trust, bringing in the NeuVector component, how would you do that?
So I think the SUSE by NeuVector solution is completely unique. We provide organizations with that visibility, and we do that at layer 7. So we're doing it based on the live traffic in the containerized environment. So the easy part of this solution is hunting for the vulnerabilities and knowing where those risks are. The difficult piece is getting that network visibility, right? And then understanding whether there is any suspicious or malicious behavior going on in that environment. So the NeuVector solution has the ability to use automated behavioral learning to actually identify what is deemed as good behavior. We can then whitelist that good behavior, so whether that is network traffic, whether that is processes, whether that is sort of network rules, and once that's whitelisted, we know that that's good behavior. That's how the application should be behaving. And when we can move through the various phases of NeuVector, and the final phase being the protect mode, we can actually block or deny any suspicious or malicious behavior. So we're looking at the risks in there, we're identifying the risks, and we're also providing that live network visibility within a containerized environment, regardless of where that containerized environment is. So that could be on a totally air-gapped network, it could be on an on-prem cloud, hybrid cloud, or in a public cloud.
Well, that's a fantastic summary, John. You've been listening to the SUSE Security Series. We'll see you on the next episode.